Well, it's a bitterly cold day outside, and there's no better day on Christmas Day than to be inside next to a roaring fire and thinking about the season ahead. And that's what I've been doing. I'm going to show you what I'm going to grow in 2023. I do this each year and I pretty much stick to it. Some things tend to change, some things are a bit on the hoof, as it were, but in the main, anything that I plan at this point, I tend to follow through with. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to grow, show you the seeds, and we'll see how we get on. So you won't be surprised that a lot of my seeds come from real seed. And if you watch my last episode, I did a bit of a real seed special. So if you want to look at them as a provider of seeds, go back and take a look at that video. My first seeds come from real seed, but a long time ago. And these are my Tsar runner beans, which I dried in the polytunnel and I've popped in an envelope ready for next year. Nice and dry in a cardboard envelope. So I spared you going through my endless boxes of seeds. Actually, I've filed them now in one of those nice plastic folders that holds all the seeds in different containers. But anyway, I've spared you going through all of that and did that myself. Well, not quite myself, because this year is a big year for change for me, and I've downsized the plot, as you may well be aware. And I thought it's time to sit down with Mrs. K and go through the seeds and see what she really wants to grow and what she wants to prepare and for food for the coming season. And well, it was interesting because some of the things that I might have grown, because I think probably because I always have, and with less space, she was of the mind not to grow some of those. So it's going to be interesting. Right, let's kick off. Now, these are pretty much random, but this box is what we've distilled down to. And there's a few flowers in here because, well, Mrs. K does like a flower. And to start off with, this is a flower that we grew last year for the first time. And it's called Cosmos bipinnatus. And its common name is Piketty. And this little packet from Premier Seeds has got 750 seeds in it. And we were given these plants. We grew them on, but we were given them by our neighbour in the allotment, and very grateful for that as well, because it turned out to be a real winner for us. So there's Piketty. Okay, I'll put these down on the side as I go. The next one is a leek, and it's a winter giant leek by Real Seeds. And I think when I went through my Real Seeds special, we had a look at leeks, and this was one of the ones I've grown historically, and I thought I'd give it another go. So that's one of the leeks I'm going to grow. Rocket, this is a very old packet from a garden magazine, and the seeds were by King Seeds, and there was 1,000 seeds in here. So I don't know about you, but Rocket sort of self-seeds in my allotment, but I need it in the right place. So I'm going to grow some Rocket because we love adding that as a flavour to our salads. A few more flowers here. I remember buying lobelia, and I bought what I thought was a good quantity, but they sent me 3 packets of each, and each of these packets contains 1,000 or 2,000 seeds in. So we've got 3 varieties of lobelia which we use in the garden. We've got trailing lobelia regatta sapphire, lobelia bedding Cambridge blue, in fact 2 packets of the Cambridge blue. So they were from just seed, and so I've had these a couple of years, but I don't anticipate any problem in them coming on nicely. So we've got a herb here, parsley. Parsley is probably one of the few herbs that we use sparingly, but it would be a bit of a miss not to have it. And this is a plain-leaved parsley, again off of a garden magazine. I tend not to buy garden magazines very often, but if I see one with a lot of seeds on it that I think most of which I might grow. I tend to pick it up because it's good value. Another herb is Coriander cruiser. This is a very old packet, but December 2020 is the sow-by date. I don't anticipate any problems. And there was 106 seeds in here. And this is one of those bolt-resisting seed, which originally came from Viridis hortus. Can't even remember buying those, but there we are. They'll be going in this year. And then in terms of lettuce, back to real seeds, I love to grow this organic Morton's Secret Mix, a very mixed lettuce seed. So this is really good fun to grow. You tend to get more of one type than another, to be fair, but it's nice to grow just a whole bunch of different shapes and types of lettuce, and rather than grow lots and lots of different packets, this is a good old mix that does the job just nicely for me. Okay, carrying on. So we've got another herb here, and this time it's a half hardy annual, and of course it's basil, and I love basil. We grow it very successfully in the polytunnel, and we sort of get 2 big pickings from it, and they get put into ice cubes, popped in the freezer, and we use them when we want to by adding them to various meals. So this is Genovese, and I think it's probably the most basic of the basils, but very, very nice indeed. Couldn't be without it. So this packet that comes from West Coast Seeds is kale, and this is a winter blend. So this came from America, and via Danny in the Grapevine allotment, we were provided this packet of seeds because he had an awful lot and he wanted to share them around. So I'm grateful to Danny. And these are packed for 2022, but they'll be just fine. And basically it's a blend, and you probably won't be able to get these unless you know someone in the States, but this is West Coast Seeds Limited. Okay, and this is another kale, and Mrs. K thought we shouldn't bother with this one, and if she watches this video she'll say, I thought I said don't bother with this one, but I can't go a season without growing Nero di Toscana, which is the Cavolo Nero type kale, and I'm going to grow just 1 or 2. So it's going to be interesting trying to limit my sowings to very small quantities this year, because my downsizing is meaning that I'm going to grow fewer plants that are bigger in my raised beds. So it's going to be a very interesting year to try and get as much food out of fewer plants, and the sowing experience is going to be different as well. The polytunnels, well, got impact from downsizing because there's a lot of things in it from the shed, and I'm thinking that having less growing space will play in nicely to having less seedlings. So this one was originally from CK Hort Supplies, and it's kale Nero di Toscana. Okay, quick heading Calabres or broccoli together with green heading Calabres or broccoli. I've had a good year on broccoli, and I think it'll be a case of growing these earlier on in the season and then adding the purple sprouting later on, so that that's ready for the winter. So both from real seeds, and well, I'll unscrunch the tops so that you can see the packets. But again, this is an old packet of seeds which won't be a problem at all in terms of sowing this year. Now last year I didn't grow any peppers. It was the only seed that I didn't grow. I was adopting a strategy of not growing any seedlings on in the house, and I've got to be honest, it worked perfectly well. There wasn't anything that I grew outside that was impacted by starting it off early in the polytunnel. So I'm going to be doing that again this year. But the one thing I didn't grow, because I didn't think it would succeed, was peppers. This year I'm going to try growing some King of the North, again from real seed. And this is an old packet, but I don't think there'll be a problem. And I'm going to grow just one or two because I don't want lots and lots, but I did miss having none at all. So we'll try those. A big decision to be made on squash, because I love growing squash, and of course I've no longer got the squash bed, so I'm going to have to pick carefully where I position my squash seed and grow only the variety that we really use the most, and that is small sugar. This one I bought I think last year, but it's a Mr. Fothergill's small sugar, and they make a beautifully orange squash, which is fantastic for pumpkin pie, which we all love. Okay, this is the purple sprouting broccoli, and this came from Premier Seeds Direct. 3,000 seeds in this packet, so this is going to last me years and years, and it's simply named Purple Early Sprouting. So I keep this one in a bag because the seeds do like to escape. Right, what's this curled up? Courgette. So Ambassador F1, 25 seeds originally from Premier Seeds, and I'm going to grow just a couple of courgettes. We always grow too many. In fact, I grew so many this year that I had some enormous ones that we used amongst the squash and pumpkins for an autumn display. But this year I'll just be growing what we need to eat. Onions, well, there's no way I would do without Globo, which is my favourite onion. It's not a long storer, but stores perfectly well for me. From Real Seeds, a fantastic onion. And I'm going to be dodging the white rot in my plot, as I always do now. But we've managed every year to have sufficient onions to meet our needs. The others that I've got that I may or may not grow, probably a couple. Bedfordshire Champion, which you've seen me grow before. This is a Mr. Fothergill's packet, an old packet that I'm using repeatedly. And of course, Zebrune, the shallot that gets to a good size and has got a fabulous taste. And these were originally from Real Seed. In fact, what's the date on these? It's sometimes hard to find the date on here. No, I can't. I'm sure it is here somewhere. Nope, can't see it. But my experience is that they don't struggle. I've got a backup packet here, which I've had for some time. We'll see how many we need to grow. And then I bought these a long time ago, and I thought I might just try a few to see how they fare. And that's Yellow Rheinsberger Long Keeping Onion, again from Real Seed, an old packet. Which I'll grow a few of. And then finally on the onion front, Elsa Craig, and this came from a magazine, and I don't know whether I'll end up growing 4 different varieties, but they're in my arsenal just in case I want to. Well, I've grown cabbage this year, Filderkraut, which has been fantastic. One single cabbage lasts us, well, weeks really. It's if you can keep it going, it's an absolutely fantastic cabbage that I find is extremely slug resistant. And the greyhound I grew this year got, well, decimated. So next year I'm just going to grow Filderkraut. The problem with Filderkraut is that they are so huge, and it's getting your head around that you don't need to grow many. So we'll see how controlled I can be, and I'll enjoy growing those. Swede this year, I grew Best of All. I'm probably going to grow a few Best of All, but I thought I'd do a bit of a trial, which was recommended by one of the subscribers. So here I've got Helena Swede, Best of All, and Champion Swede. One from Mr. Fothergill's, one from Wilco, and one from Real Seeds. And what I want to try and do is understand the impact on the hardness of the root from growing them close together, because I know that growing them close together causes the root to be smaller, and if you want a small Swede, which I did this year, it works perfectly. but I feel that it tends to be a little bit tougher, and I'm wondering whether it's the seed cells as it grows being confined by the growing space. So that's what I'm going to try and do. I might even try different soil types to grow them in, but anyway, it's going to be a bit of a trial. So there we are, there's the real seeds. This one is a Wilco seed from our local Wilkinsons, and this one's a Mr. Fothergill. So that'll be a bit of fun. And then can't really grow leeks without growing my favourite, which is Musselburgh. This tends to be a favoured grower for me because it grows quite large. It's always reasonably resistant to cold weather. In fact, even in freezing weather like it is at the moment, they come through for a reasonable amount of time, probably through to late January, and that's always good to be harvesting. Another packet of coriander there because there weren't many in that last packet. We may or may not grow those. Onto my Brussels sprout, and it's been the best Brussels sprout year I've ever had. And these seeds were recommended by a subscriber, and they're called Brilliant F1. There were 80 seeds in the packet originally, so I've got enough for growing sprouts this year, and they were supplied by Premier Seeds. When I say supplied, all my seeds are bought by me. So celeriac, well, anybody who watches my videos will know the devastation of my celeriac crop this year by slugs. So I'm looking for innovative ways of growing celeriac this year. Most people suggest growing it in pots or having a go at growing it in pots. And by that I mean the big ones that you grow potatoes in. I might well do that, but I'm going to grow just a few, and I've got 2 old packets of seed here. I've got Celeriac Ibis from Tamar Organics and Celeriac Monarch from Unwins. So there's the Unwins one, and that's the Tamar Organics. Okay, beetroot. Mrs. K said we need less beetroot this year. I think I cut it down last year. She tends to make beetroot chutney from it, which we love, but for sure you don't need too many. And so I'm going to grow the traditional Boltardi. That one is from Wilco. And I'm going to grow Solo F1, which is a Thompson & Morgan seed packet from a long time ago. Okay, on to the tomatoes. These are the last seeds. Apart from Charlotte potatoes, which it's not quite right time to get those yet. So I've got 5 packets of seeds here for tomatoes, and that's because I haven't fully made up my mind. I've grown Roma each year for the last 2 years, and it's been very successful. It's a very late fruiting tomato, and it's been nice to have tomatoes that are still pickable at the end of the season. And this year was very unusual because we found that we were picking tomatoes very, very late in the season. So that's from Seed Sloth. They were a fairly old packet. And then this year I've bought 2 new packets from Real Seeds. House, the dwarf cherry tomato, which is a favourite of mine. And for the first time, Buck Flats Wonder, a short vine tomato. And the common thread here is that I grow tomatoes that don't get too big because the polytunnel gets a bit overrun by the tomato growth if I don't select carefully. I've also got Latar, my favourite, very early red tomato, and I might grow 1 or 2 of those just to keep the succession of tomatoes over the season. And then I grow Moneymaker for members of the family. So this one is a packet without a brand on it, but Moneymaker available across lots of brands. So that's my seed growing intentions for this year. As I say, it'll be about growing far less plants because I've got smaller space, but that's going to be interesting. And my endeavour is to grow enough plants that fill the various raised beds, but not to the point where it gets too many plants per bed, and therefore the challenge is going to be having as much food from a smaller space than I've had before. So it's going to be a really interesting year in that respect. Well, I hope you've enjoyed my quick summary of what I intend to grow. I hope you've had a great Christmas day, and if you don't celebrate Christmas Day, then I just hope you've had a lovely day at home, and I wish everyone the best and speak to you soon. Good times.